All right. Welcome to another episode of Only Comics. I'm Mike. This is Adrian.
What's up?
What's up, dude? How we doing?
Dude, this weather up here needs some medicine, man.
For real,
dude. It's
dude.
like I don't know how to dress these days.
Me
it's
neither.
hot, it's cold, it's freezing, it's rain. It's been raining for like the last week. We're over in Edwards country up in Seattle.
For real.
Whatever, man.
Edward. You love yourself some Edward, huh?
Well, it's only because his better half is we're going to talk about her today.
Oh, we're definitely going
right?
to talk about her, dude. We're definitely going to talk about her for some reason. She's in the news again. But
relevance.
Yes.
Staying relevant.
Definitely. But we got a fun show planned for y'all today, right? We got, as usual, we're going to go through some news and rumors. A lot of stuff happening. A lot of X-Men stuff in the news, Adrian.
Yep.
I dressed appropriately, as you can see.
Yep. I see.
Yep, little X-Men.
And I have no idea what I have on my head. I think it's Captain America, maybe?
It is Cap.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
There we go.
Man, you put the hat on that long ago? You forgot already?
I sleep with it, bro.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Yep, you're rocking the cap. But, yeah, a lot of good X-Men stuff. We got the third episode of X-Men 97 to review.
Yep.
A lot of Jean Grey in that episode, Great cliffhanger last week, so that was cool to see. We got our Omega Level Mutant Series coming up later. We're actually going to talk about Jean Grey today, so fun show planned. But we're going to hop into the news like we always do. Kick this thing off. If you're joining us for the first time, I need to warn you, we are not experts, okay? We are not experts. We're only fans. Well, not like only fans, but you know what I mean. So we're going to dive in right now. So what do we got going on first? Fantastic Four, Adrian. Rumor to take place in another timeline. So now, not just another timeline. They're also saying, like, it may be a whole separate universe, right? Like, we know it's going to take place in the 60s, but this new rumor, what they're saying is it's not going to be like the main timeline of the MCU in that past. It may be a completely alternate universe, but somehow it's gonna connect to the MCU. Maybe when they come to the present time or something like that. So now you're big Fantastic Four guy, big Reed Richards. I mean, a lot of time travel stories and universe traveling stories in the comics. This is very up his alley, right?
Right.
How do you feel about just hearing this rumor? Do you hope this is true?
I've always thought that if they're going to put the Fantastic Four, if they're going to start them out back in the past,
Yep.
it has to be some time jumping or universe jumping involved in it.
Right.
Because the Fantastic Four is too relevant today in order to not be in today's presence.
Right.
Or relevant with today. So, it sounds cool.
Yep.
I'm still stuck on the casting. But we'll see how that comes around.
Yeah. You're still hung up on my man Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
I mean, I said it before. I think he can pull it off, but yeah, as far as the look, it's a little iffy for me. Yeah. But yeah, I like the idea of it being in an alternate universe because What I wouldn't like, and this happens too much, I think, in comics and in movies in general, is when they retcon something that just doesn't make sense. Like, if the Fantastic Four already existed in the main MCU timeline, we had all these movies, Iron Man, Hulk, why were they never brought up or mentioned? Why did Nick Fury never mentioned? You know what I mean?
Right.
This big Avengers, Thanos is trying to destroy the whole universe. Why were they not involved if they had already existed in this time? So I think this is a great way to tie them in, is have them come from an alternate universe so that there's no confusion for me anyways,
I'm kind of not feeling that because because there's so much crossover.
Yeah.
There's so much crossover between the X-Men, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, all these different. Then you have the Iron Man by himself, Captain America off by himself.
Yeah.
So there's all this integration of characters, and it's like it's cool if you have the Avengers in it, which was phenomenal how they did that. The Spider-Man, how they did that. The Iron Man, how they did that. But at some point they gotta marry all of these people.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have it at the level that they had with Avengers Endgame and all this other kind of stuff, but you got to have the Fantastic Four come in and out of there somewhere. Like even with the Avengers, wars and stuff, they introduced the new Spider-Man that way.
Right.
Why couldn't they have introduced the new Fantastic Four?
Yeah.
So it's things like that. So to have them come from an alternative universe, it's kind of nonsensical to me.
Really?
For a team of that caliber,
yeah,
that should be right in Manhattan, around in the midst of all of this stuff.
Got it. Now we've seen some like universe travel, like the Marvels, one of our favorite movies of all time. But at the end of the Marvels, the whole Beast scene when Monica Rambeau ends up in their universe, where obviously there's already X-Men established there, which we don't have in the main MCU. So it could be something as simple as the Fantastic Four is in that universe, because that's I believe that story with Monica being in the alternate universe is gonna somehow tie into Secret Wars or wherever we're going from in this. Like somehow they're gonna want to bring her back to the main universe, and then we're gonna see some of this crossover. I think, which what you're talking about, X-Men meeting Avengers, the whole deal. Now there's a lot of Secret Wars rumors, so we'll get to that in a minute. But it's almost it's a shame that, and you said this, they shouldn't have killed off Tony Stark.
Right.
It's a shame that these characters have been killed off because we haven't seen all this crossover with X-Men and Fantastic, which we're so used to seeing in the comics. Like we did the Secret Wars review last week, and I think I love that story. One of my favorite aspects of all of these events is in the comic. No one really dies in the comics, right? So you get to see all this crossover with different characters, which is cool. You get Captain Cringe, Cyclops, and then Captain America, who's equally as cringe. We get to see them, crossover or whatnot. Who's more cringe? You don't agree with me that Cyclops is cringe, do you?
Wait a minute, what's cringe again?
It's like corny.
Oh, that's corny. He's definitely cringe.
Yeah.
Along with Captain Falcon.
Yeah. Oh, Captain Falcon, your boy. All right, so rumored to take place in another timeline that remains. Now that's next year, so we'll see. We'll learn sooner than later. Next up, X-Men voice actors had to re-audition for the Wolverine and Rogue parts in X-Men '97, so they didn't just give it to them. Now we're 3 episodes in. We're gonna talk about third episode later. I'm still like 50-50 on the Wolverine voice.
Yeah, I am too. It just doesn't sound beastly enough.
No,
that makes sense. It's not guttural. It's not like it's like some old lady just hey, this is Wolverine. Let's go snick.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So you're not a big gamer. We know your favorite game is Ratchet and Clank, right?
Yes.
There was a game that came out. This was probably almost 20 years ago now. It was a Scarface game. Okay. You a big Scarface fan, Tony Montana?
No.
No, really?
Nah.
Okay. Well, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, Scarface.
Sure.
So Al Pacino played Tony Montana, great character, whole deal. This game came out probably 20, 30 years after that movie.
Okay.
They approached Al Pacino about voicing him, and he turned it down because he said his voice had changed so much in that time.
Sure.
He didn't want to reprise the role and not sound like Tony Montana. So they had a new guy, I forget the guy, but the voice actor who did the voice for the game sounded just like Al Pacino in the movie. So knowing that and reading this article, like I think it's cool they had to re-audition. I don't know that they should have got the part. I mean, Rogue I think sounds cool.
Sure.
I don't know that Cal Dina, and I love his work in the animated series and the whole deal, but I don't think he should have got the part. I think they should have found someone who can emulate the voice of the old animated series and let that person play Wolverine.
That's fair. I mean, as you get older, I mean, you have to reapply for your driver's license, right?
Yeah.
You have to go get your eyes checked every once in a while. Shit deteriorates. So I think they did it as a courtesy. I don't think it was like a forced thing. I think out of courtesy, out of respect for the original actors, they just had this audition. But I agree, they could have just gone with somebody that sounds the way they did when the movies first came out.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Marvel rumored to want a Spider-Man, Iron Man reunion in Secret Wars. So we've talked about this a bunch here with Tony Stark, who you're doubling down. He should not have been killed off. Right. We should have let Robert Downey just continue on, right?
Yep.
It's hard. Like part of me agrees. Now that Endgame moment was special. That was an amazing end to that story. But someone actually DM'd me on TikTok and they said, do you think if Marvel ended the MCU with Endgame, would that have been the perfect ending? And I thought about it, and I said, yeah, I think it would have. It's almost like that would have been a perfect time for a reboot if you wanted to and I get it. Robert Downey Jr. is getting older. I mean, you don't want a guy who's, 80 years old playing, Iron Man, Michael Keaton,
Right.
The Flash. But so I get it, why they probably wanted to, or maybe he wanted to bow out, who knows. But it's hard with comics because these characters never really die in the comics.
Right.
It's like The Simpsons, dude. They've been going on for like 50 years, but Bart's still in friggin' high school for some reason.
Right.
So it's almost like they jumped the gun a little bit because now they want to bring him back like 5 years or 10 years later. Right. So I don't know how I feel about it. Like I get it would be really cool to see these two characters again, but it would really devalue that whole ending. Like that wouldn't be as important anymore, right, in my mind. Yeah. How do you feel about seeing Spider-Man, Iron Man reunion in Secret Wars?
The thing about it is that the Tony Stark character is so iconic in the comics. Now, they could have, just like they do everybody else, right? They age out. Yep. Hugh Jackman is going to eventually age out. Eventually he won't have that massive vein. You think it'll go away? Right? So the actors age out. How many Spider-Mans have we had? How many Hulks have we had?
Right.
So these major characters, the actors can age out. You don't kill the character itself, which is what they did.
Right.
But they did it with an actor that has made the character so iconic that it would be disrespectful, painful. It's like a family member died, and then you come back 2 years later, and that person's sitting in your living room again. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on? This is like weird kind of a deal. So I think they had the perfect actor with a high-profile character. They killed him off, so it's going to be almost impossible to bring him back in a way that makes diehard fans able to consume this thing rationally. Now, with that being said, yes, I would like to see a Spider-Man, Iron Man, team up. Yeah, that would be cool. But if they bring Tony back, it's gotta make sense. Yeah. And they can't do this Captain Falcon hybrid version of a Tony Stark.
Right.
It can't be the Don Cheadle playing the Iron Man kind of a thing. It's got to be a Tony Stark, and they got to figure that out.
Okay, you say so, not like a pseudo Iron Man who, hey, we're gonna just have War Machine step in and play that role. Right. Actually, yeah, and I think that's what they're. I think they're saying Robert Downey Jr., Tom Holland reunion. Right. Which now they can't. Well, I guess they can do whatever the fuck they want, but I wouldn't want to see them undo the death. You know what I mean? Like, hey, time travel, go back. We save this Tony Stark from the snap. We figure out another way to defeat Thanos. I wouldn't want to see that. So then the only other option is it's a variant from another universe, right? Another timeline.
Well, that's not the only option.
What's the other one?
It could be a variant. Yeah. They can do like a Fantastic Four, back before the death kind of a deal. Or they can do a thing where, and I've always said this about like Tony Stark and
the AI?
A version of AI. Yeah. And Bruce Wayne. They got all this money. They got all this this knowledge and information. Why don't they figure out a way to make themselves live forever? Right. By either downloading themselves into a digital version or making it some kind of an AI that can live on beyond them. So there's ways for them to do it, but they have to make it make sense however they do it. Yeah.
I think the one I would not want is them to undo the death, like you're saying, if they went back in time like that. That would then ruin Endgame for me. Endgame would now it would not have that sense of closure. It wouldn't be it would ruin that moment for me anyway.
So if they made something that existed before naturally in the timeline, I don't mean like the death happened.
Oh, okay, like just hey, go back. Remember then when this happened?
Yeah, no. I mean like it was an event like they did like with Madam Web. It happened in like 2000. As opposed to now. Yeah,
I'd be okay with that, but I think it would also cheapen the whole but what I wouldn't want is like they figure out a way to prevent the death. And then now this version of Tony Stark is still alive, and that would ruin everything. Yeah. But then now, how would you feel if it was a variant from another universe, but it was Robert Downey Jr.?
I think it still would cheapen it. Yeah. To a degree, but also the variants, they also have a different personality typically. Because if you like look at the Flash on CDW, they have all these different Flashes. Not only were they look completely different, they had different personalities, all this other kind of stuff. So I mean, there's a lot to it. It would never be the Earth 616 Tony Stark.
Correct. That's what we don't want to see.
Right.
Yeah. But I think so. But it wouldn't really be a reunion if it was from another Earth and it was, the Robert Downey Jr. Okay, he looks just like this version, but to your point, it's a completely different character. Right. That Tony Stark may have never met Peter Parker.
Exactly.
Or maybe the Peter Parker in his universe is different. I mean, we've seen, to your point, like in No Way Home, there was 3 different Peter Parkers.
Right. or you have a Tony Stark where he's a dumbass and he knows nothing about the Iron Man armor.
Right.
Or I mean,
Tom Cruise could play that one,
or not. Which of course then begs the thing about, like, if you have this Tony Stark that's so left field of the Earth 616 Tony Stark, what's the point of even bringing him over? So he's pretty much got to be exactly like the Tony Stark that we actually know. Now they could also do some Stan Stark bullshit, right? The guy that tried to take over the family business, I think he's like the uncle or some weird version of some family member, probably like the Nova whatever of Xavier.
Yeah,
like the crazy sister of Xavier.
Oh yeah, Cassandra Nova.
Cassandra Nova. So some crazy variant of some family member that's always been jealous. So they could probably do something like that too. Yeah. But again, we're not talking about 616 Tony Stark.
Right. Now because this is rumor for Secret Wars, right? So Secret Wars is we just read the story. It takes place in the battle world. So there were, if I remember right, in the first Secret Wars, were there not characters that were dead at the time that showed up alive in Battleground or Battle World? I feel like there was a couple that were killed off and they were alive when they got to Battle World.
I don't remember that.
Well, we're not experts, so if y'all know, tell us. But I'll look it up. I feel like maybe I'm mixing up the two. Maybe it was in Secret Wars 15 where there was a character killed off that when they got there, it was alive. So, there's that whole thing with a lot of comic fans, like if it's true to the comics, it's acceptable, right? So if that is the case, would you be okay with that? Like they show up because it's Battle World. Dead characters are resurrected. Would you be okay with the 616 Tony Stark showing up in Battle World?
For a one-off, I could stomach that.
Yeah.
Knowing that this is the purpose of it.
Correct.
But then you would also have to have like the Beyonder or God Doom explain why you resurrected these people.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. It's got to make sense.
Yeah. So you just gave Marvel your blessing. You said you guys can do this as long as it makes sense. So you heard it here first on Only Comics.
Listen, whether we give them our blessing, and we'll get into this later, whether we give them our blessing or they just steal it, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway, because I got like one little snippet of news when you get done, that's like, it's just funny, dude.
Okay.
I mean, they got to be watching.
All right, so moving on. Up next, Deadpool and Wolverine rumored to take place mostly in the Void. So the Void's a place we saw in Loki, right? It's funny, we're talking about Secret Wars and the whole battle world. The Void, it's similar. An area that's kind of far removed from the actual universe. There's no innocent people there. Perfect world for a big old fight, right?
Right.
I don't know, I'm excited for Deadpool Wolverine. I do think it's probably going to be the best thing Marvel's put out in a long time. But hearing that it's going to take place mostly in the Void, that I'm not as excited about. I just feel like it's, I don't want it to turn into some CGI fest, Right. And the idea of Wolverine and Deadpool kind of traveling through different universes and going to different locations. That was very cool and attractive for. So it's just a rumor; it could be wrong.
Sure.
So this is one I'm not too excited about. Most of the movie taking place in the Void. I know a good part of it will. I hope maybe it's like 50-50, not a whole 80-20. How would you feel if most of it took place in the Void?
Again, what's the purpose of them being in the Void? Because if it's just sitting around, slipping through from one timeline to the next, to the next, to the next, there's no point of even having a movie.
Correct.
So we'll have to see what they're doing.
Yep.
I'm still thinking, Deadpool's probably going to go kick Loki in the nuts and take over the throne, but we'll see.
Gotcha. Last piece of news for the week: Beyond the Spider-Verse rumored to take rumored for a late 2024 or early 2025 release. And one of the voice actors said, "Adrian, get your hankies ready." So, what he's saying is going to be emotional. Now, this is the voice actor who said this. I forget his name, but he plays Miles' dad in the Spider-Verse movie. Okay. So he's probably pretty privy to the script. I wonder if he's alluding to his own death, maybe.
Or because in Earth 616, right? Gwen Stacy was a love interest of Peter Parker, and she fell to her death after, I think it was a goblin attack.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So you have a Gwen Stacy spider person. She might die.
She might die
in this because the Earth has to. Everything has to be reclaimed, right?
Right.
A Gwen Stacy died, so we need this Gwen Stacy
to
die.
True.
So it could be that.
Could be that too. But what I'm most excited about this piece of news is the whole late 24, early 25, because the last update we had about this movie was it was just delayed indefinitely. Like they had not delayed, but there was those issues about the whole overworking the VX artist, the whole deal.
Right.
So in order to kind of counteract that, they just removed the release date and said there's no date listed yet to give them more time to complete it. But I'd be cool to have this movie, because we only really have one Marvel movie coming out this year, Deadpool and Wolverine. Unless you count Venom 3 and shit like that. Hey, Madam Web, we're gonna get to that next week, by the way. Buckle up. But so I'm ready for this movie, dude. I'd love to see it at the end of the year, early next year. How about you?
I'm cool with it, but if it comes out at the end of this year, it's going to be a Christmas movie.
It might be. It could be. We all know we got a few comic Christmas movies.
Sure,
Batman Returns, obviously, Iron Man 3. But they said get your hankies ready, dude. That's some old school shit. I don't keep a hanky on me to, blow snot into it. So we have tissues now,
Or your sleeve. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I'm going to stick to the tissues, I think. So, all right, that's our news for the week. Adrian, we like to wrap up our news with a little thumbs up, thumbs down, okay? So if you've been following along, you could probably predict where we're going to fall on this, but the real fun starts when our fans chime in, because they don't always agree with us, but they're watching and they're supporting. Okay. So that's all. We have a kind of I wouldn't say adversarial relationship. We got a good little back and forth with our fans. But I think they know it's all in good fun. And they also know if they say something too stupid, they're going to get called out on We Respond. So there's that too. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Fantastic Four rumored to take place in an alternate universe in a different timeline. I'm giving this a thumbs up.
I'm going to give it a thumbs up only because I'm used to it.
Okay. Voice actors for X-Men 97 had to re-audition for their parts. Wolverine and Rogue being those voice actors. I'm giving that a thumbs up.
Also thumbs up.
Marvel rumored to want a Spider-Man, Iron Man reunion in Secret Wars. I'm going to give this a thumbs down.
I'm going to give it a thumbs up because it would be exciting to see what they actually do with this.
Okay. Deadpool and Wolverine rumored to take place mostly in the void. I'm giving that a thumbs down.
I'm not seeing what they can do with that, but so thumbs down.
And last but not least, Beyond the Spider-Verse rumored to be released in late 24, early 25. And one of the voice actors said, "Get your hankies ready." I'm giving this a thumbs up.
Thumbs up, not for the release, not for the hanky stuff.
No, you're not gonna have your hanky ready.
Dude, I don't care.
I will say, I'm not afraid to admit, Adrian, there's a couple comic movie moments that did bring me to a little eye sweating. Okay, there's a couple.
Eye sweating is when things around your eyes produce water. You were crying.
I was crying. I shed a few tears, Adrian. I'm man enough to admit it, bro. So you know what, y'all in the comments, let us know what movies did you maybe shed a couple tears or your eyes started sweating for. The Tony Stark's death, dude, that one got me.
Yeah,
that one got me.
That was good. That was good.
The reunion of Tony and Peter, when he came back to life, that was But yeah, the Tony Stark death one got me. It's probably the biggest moment. And then the Logan, at the end of Logan, when he dies and the little girl's like, "Oh my God, Daddy," that one got me too. Having two daughters, I'm like, damn it, But so we'll see. We'll see if the Spider-Verse. Now, do you think this movie? Do you think there's any validity to what this actor's saying that this movie's going to be that level? Whether you cry or not, but it would be that level of emotion in this movie as well.
I would say that the fact that he said that means that people are going to be shoring themselves up to not do that. So it's probably going to have the opposite effect.
Got it.
But it keeps them relevant.
Yeah.
It keeps the movie, in the spotlight, keeps them moving along. So, that's cool.
Gotcha. All right. Well, next up, Adrian, we got your segment, old fan favorite here called Hidden Gem, where Adrian breaks through or releases a wealth of his knowledge he's built up over the years and breaks down a hidden gem for you all. This segment became so popular. Now we kind of have two segments like this, right? Yep. We got the Omega Mutant Level, or I always screw that up because we're not experts, the Omega Level Mutant Series. So I know who's not going to be the hidden gem. It's not going to be Jean Grey because we're going to talk about her later.
Right.
Outside of that, I don't know. You didn't even share with me this week, so I'm going to be surprised just like our viewers.
This was a busy week, man. A lot going on this week, so we'll jump right into it.
Let's do it.
We're going to keep it short.
All right.
We're going to keep it short for two reasons. One, we got other stuff to do, and number two, it's a DC.
Okay.
So it's hard to find. No, I'm just joking. So
it took you 2 weeks to find this hidden gem because it's DC?
No, it's just that they're kind of lackluster lately, man.
Yeah,
they're not in the news. They're not really. There's not like a lot of high level projects that they got going on. Nothing that's really exciting. But anyway, moving on.
Let's get to it.
All right. So this week's hidden gem. He's kind of not all over the place, but he's just a funny kind of a character. Not like a Deadpool funny, but just like a clownish kind of character. This week's hidden gem is Mr. Mixoplix or Mixotic or however you want to pronounce it. But basically, this guy is a fifth dimensional character.
Okay.
He came out in Superman like number 30 back in 1944. So he's been around for a minute, right? So he's an imp, a little character that is so. DC doesn't have Omega Level Mutant categories.
Of course they don't.
Right? But this guy would be considered an Omega Level character.
Okay.
He basically has all the powers, right?
What's his name?
Mixoplex. It's MXYZPTLK or IK.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So, and it's funny because he was actually like a student in his fifth dimensional world.
He looks like the Mad Hatter.
Yep. So he comes over and he actually started messing with Superman, which is his main point of focus. It's like Sabretooth with Wolverine. He just comes around every once in a while to mess with Superman. But if Superman's not there, he'll mess with Lex Luthor or the Joker or something like that. His name is, he actually broke out when he first introduced himself to 616, right? He actually broke out he made this giant typewriter out of nothing. And he actually typed this name, MXYZPTIK.
Yeah.
Because his only limitations is what makes him like this Omega level character. His only limitations he sets on himself.
Got it.
So his limitation was that, okay, I'm going to type out this crazy name for me. And if Superman can get me to say my name backwards, right, which would be some weird name like Kel Tip Zip or something like that, right, he'll go back to his fifth dimension.
Got it.
So in the meantime, he'll antagonize Superman, right, until he makes him do this thing. And so Superman, with all his godlike powers, right, the only mental power that he really had was to trick this guy into saying his name backwards. I mean, if you think about Superman, well, he's actually very smart, being Kryptonian, being advanced, but he's not like smart, not like a Batman smart,
right.
Or a Lex Luthor or Tony Stark or Reed Richards kind of smart.
So wait, what you're saying is Superman would need help on his homework from Batman?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But one thing he did do was cool was, this is Superman.
Yeah.
He was out in space, right? And his cousin, Supergirl, she was involved in some kind of explosion in space. and it propelled her like super fast, right, through space. And in space, unless you hit another body, you're just going to keep going because there's no friction.
Right.
Right. So he had to stop and calculate based on the explosion, where she was during the explosion, right?
Mm-hmm.
How fast that he thought that she was going to go. He had to sit and calculate the exact angle, because if you're off by a fraction of a degree, if you go light years, of course you're light years away from where you want to be.
Right.
So he had to go and not only figure out what projection that she was going on and how fast she was going, but he had to fly that speed in order to catch up with her, which is what he did. But when he did that, he ran into I forget his name now. But anyway, he had to, and he had her because he's like a phantom guy. He's like this celestial guy above Omega level. But anyway, he had his cousin, and in order to get his cousin, he had to get her from him.
Got it.
And Superman, of course, like, force, I'm gonna pound you, and he hit this guy, didn't even move him, that kind of stuff. And he's like, dude, all you had to do was ask.
Right.
That's really. But anyway, back to this Mixoplex character. So he would basically antagonize Superman, and when he came in, do all kind of stupid stuff, turn Superman into like. So his power set is that pretty much anything that who we'll talk about later, Jean Grey can do. Matter manipulation at a cosmic level. He can create things out of thin air. He can change things, including animate objects, into inanimate objects, and vice versa.
Damn.
He's transformed people. Reality warping. He can create entire, environments, kind of like what Wanda did. Obviously his thing is magic. So, I mean, he could like just wipe out Superman because, Superman's one of his invulnerabilities besides kryptonite is magic, which is why Black Adam should be an evil character so they can fight, right?
You're damn right.
He could do virtually anything imaginable. He can manipulate anything and everything. So that kind of tells you where this guy is. Teleportation, of course, because he has to teleport. He can teleport between dimensions, across space, across time. He can manipulate logic and the fundamentals of reality. He can make a Pikachu world, or he can make a anime world, so he can make any kind of anything look like anything else.
Wow.
Right? Power distribution. He can, you're already a mutant, but so if he wants to amp your mutant power up or give you a mutant power that you don't already have, he can give you that. So power distribution. Metamorphosis. He can turn himself into the Michelin Man and walk around like in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
He can make himself into a building. He can make himself into an airplane with his face on the front of it. So he can do basically anything. Immortal, right? Obviously, he can fly, so he can fly as fast or faster than Superman, right? Cosmic awareness. He's like what is it, like Deadpool and She-Hulk? What do you call it? The fourth page or something?
Oh yeah, they break the fourth wall.
Yeah, the fourth wall. He has that, so he knows like all the characters' secrets and everything, and he can actually talk to you as the reader. So he has that fourth wall thing. Images and object animation. Like I said, he can make this. He can turn his camera into a giraffe and make it move around the room, or he can just make the camera move like an animate object.
Yeah.
Right? Invisibility. He can make himself invisible. He can pop his head out of dimensions, right? So he doesn't have to make his body entirely invisible or visible. He can make parts of his body visible or invisible. And of course, his weaknesses, like I said, his only weakness really is himself. He'll come to Earth and he'll set limitations for him being here, or he'll put limitations on what he can do, and he'll provide other people with that knowledge so that they can challenge him, so that he meets those limitations.
Yeah.
So he's an interesting character. Obviously, not somebody that I'm kind of glad that they made him into this impish character that kind of pops in and out.
Yeah.
Because again, he's not somebody that would be able to be portrayed properly on screen. He just has, any kind of power. Just think of just anything that you could possibly think of. he can do it, but he does it as in a mischief kind of a way. So that's a hidden gem. This character, I mean, he's been around throughout all of my DC readings. He pops in. He's like Lockheed from the X-Men. He's just there, but not really. So a lot of people probably don't even know who he is.
Man, he's a small fella too.
Yep.
So what you're getting at is Tom Cruise could play him. They're the same size.
Yes.
At least he has that part down.
Potentially, yes.
But I think that's a cool aspect of this character too. Is he has all these powers, but he looks like nothing. He looks like a little guy he looks like the Mad Hatter.
Right.
Like Batman would just backhand and he's out the way, we're good. But he literally has powers to the level of damn near Jean Grey.
Right. No, I think his powers surpass Jean Grey.
Really?
Yeah. And I got like 4 pages of powers from Jean Grey. Stuff I didn't even know that she had, dude. But this guy can basically he can do anything. Just anything. But but he has like this psychosis. Like he's like kind of he has a mental disorder.
Yeah.
Which makes him like that person that likes to just go and mess with people and stuff. So, he's got that kind of a deal going on.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's just a fun character. And like I said, he mostly antagonizes Superman. Mm-hmm. But if Superman's not around, he's in another dimension, whatever Superman does, right?
Yeah.
He'll go and mess with somebody else. Batman, the Joker, something like that.
Damn. Now, the ultimate question, you probably know what I'm going to ask.
Yes.
Could he Mixoplex? That's how you say. Am I saying it right?
Who knows?
Whatever. So this guy we're talking about right now, we like to prove to y'all that we're not experts because some people think we are. Adrian, believe that. But this hidden gem, Mixoplexel.
Yep.
Could he solo the Justice League?
Absolutely.
Damn.
Now
another one.
Now, this is one of those bits of news that I got to say. So I'm doing research, right?
Yeah.
And I'm popping around. I go on YouTube. Now, I know people are watching on the comics, right?
Right.
And they're basing their stuff off of what we're saying here. Because
you're damn right.
And this is so when you go do a search on YouTube and you see the searches that a lot of people have been done, it's like they put it right up front.
Yep.
What do I see? Suicide Squad defeats Justice League.
Damn. Yep.
I'm like, really? Really? So we premiered this defeating Justice League thing.
Yep.
But I mean, so if the Suicide Squad can beat the Justice League, of course this character can defeat anybody can defeat Superman. The Justice League.
Damn. Anybody says, whew.
Dude. The Suicide Squad can defeat or kill the Justice League.
So that's a game. There's a video game dropped. I've not played it yet.
Yeah.
But the more we talk about, Solo and the Justice League, I literally had no interest in this game because I'm like, who really cares about the Suicide Squad? Like, let's be honest.
Right.
They came out with 2 shitty movies, and I said this, and I'll say this, I will, on agree to disagree, Adrian, there's some takes that I may change my mind later on in the show, even, sometimes a week later. But this is one, they say, a hill I'll die on, this hill I'll die on. The David Ayer Suicide Squad movie, the first one, is better than James Gunn's version. There's no one can ever tell me different on that one.
I agree with that.
Anyway, but because we're so, I don't want to say anti-Justice League, but we just like to find the characters that can solo the Justice League.
Right.
Jean Grey being one of them, So because we keep talking about this, I think I want to play this game just so I can solo the Justice League.
Well, one of our readers, subscribers have already said, I think Mike could solo the Justice League.
We did, and then we had another one that said only comics would defeat the Justice League. So either way, whether I get it done myself, I'll try myself first, right? But I just need you ready so that just in case, Flash starts running a little too fast or something, and I'll have to tag you in, and we can just take them both out, or the rest of them,
Just squeeze some baby oil on the floor. They'll take care of Flash.
There you go. And I will just, what I'll do is I'll get a kryptonite milkshake or something, and I'll just spit that shit right at Superman, right in his face. I don't care, So, anyway. All right. I think our fans are going to love this. So, dude, another great hidden gem. Can't wait to see what we got going on with Jean Grey a little later on. Now, Adrian, the moment all of us have been waiting for here. I don't know about all of us. There's only 2 of us here, but agree to disagree.
Okay.
This is where I rapid fire a handful. I don't have 10 this week. I got 8, so spoiler.
Yeah.
But a handful of my opinions, things that just kind of hit me on the spot, hit me today, maybe past couple days. I'm going to throw them at you, and you're going to let me know if you agree or not.
All right.
And then our fans will probably do the same. So, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Number 1, X-Men 97 is the best Marvel release since Spider-Man No Way Home.
Agree.
Marvel should have recasted Wolverine in X-Men 97.
Recast it or recast the voice?
Yeah, like recast. Yeah, new voice.
Agree.
Legion would solo the Justice League, the X-Men, and the Avengers. Not at the same time, separately.
The X-Men, well, disagree.
Okay. Cyclops' best on-screen portrayal has been in X-Men 97.
Agree.
Marvel should get rid of the Smart Hulk and bring back the big old angry Hulk.
Agree.
The MCU should never undo Tony Stark's death.
Agree.
Magneto's costume in X-Men 97 is the worst Magneto costume we've ever seen on screen.
Yeah, I agree. They just took that whole 90s thing to a whole different level.
Yeah, that one's it's just too much.
And they made him look like, I mean, I got gray hair.
Yeah.
And I've been told I don't look the age.
Mm-hmm.
So they made Magneto not only with the gray silver hair, but he looks ancient. I mean, they made him like this old dude in some spandex with a big M on his whole body. Like, that's just a weird look, dude.
And to me, that's so not Magneto. Like,
right.
Why would Magneto want to put a big ass M on his and I get they want to get away from the villain look, and I know he wore this in the comics, but every comic costume in the comics is not good either.
Right.
I mean, have you ever seen Hawkeye in the comics? Holy shit.
Wow. That's a lot of purple.
He looks like a purple Robin Hood on crack. So last but not least, Only Comics is the only comic podcast for you.
Agree.
All right. I think everyone's going to agree with that one.
Yep.
So moving on, Adrian, we have, I'm debating. Which will we go first? We go Omega Level? Do we go X-Men 97? I think we go Omega Level Mutant because that's a good segue into the X-Men 97 episode this week.
Okay.
So we'll start with the Omega Level Mutant Series. My girl, Jean Grey, up in this piece, I wouldn't say my girl. I wouldn't want to date Jean Grey, dude. I mean, she knows what you're thinking. You can't lie to her.
Exactly.
God. You think she knows where she wants to eat, though?
I think she's too complex to date.
Mm-hmm.
Because there would be literally nothing that you could match her on.
Correct.
I mean, what would be a interesting conversation to a person like that?
Yeah, who could read your mind? Like, she knows what you're going to say to her before you say it.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, you're just a regular guy, right?
Yep.
And,
I could solo the Justice League.
You're a regular mutant.
Yeah, we're regular. We're not Omega Level.
Right,
no.
right. But she's this cosmic entity. She's been in the minds of some of the more powerful people.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, the nightmare. I mean, she's defeated this dude. I mean, come on. What could you possibly have in common with someone like a Jean Grey? But anyway, we get off topic.
Yep. So let's dive in. Jean Grey, Omega Level. We'll kind of do what we did last week. I'll break down a little bit of the origins, and then I know you got the whole power set kind of. You said you had 4 pages of powers, so holy shit! I'll make sure I save you enough time, Adrian. Yeah. But Jean Grey, I mean, one of my favorite X-Men characters. I think that Jean Grey has. I mean, in the comics, she first appeared in the original X-Men #1 back in 1963. I think they were still calling her Marvel Girl at the time, or not still, but she was debuted as Marvel Girl, right? Mm-hmm. And her origin came out, somewhat later, but and her origin's one, Adrian, that has remained pretty consistent. Like we've seen 2 different portrayals of her in live action. We saw Famke Johnson. I'm probably saying the name wrong, but and then which was I think a great portrayal. Yep. And then we've seen the Sophie Turner travesty that happened over the course of way too many movies. But in both of those stories, their origins were very similar to the comic origin, right? Yep. So Jean Grey, second daughter of John and Elaine Grey. She's got an older sister who I don't know if we've ever seen the older sister in any comics. But
I didn't know she had an older sister.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep. So apparently Sarah Grey. Her dad was a professor at a college in upstate New York. And, early on, she had no she found out about her powers when a friend of hers was killed and hit by a car, and somehow these two were linked telepathically, I guess. So,
what happened was, so the trauma of seeing her friend get hit by a car activated her mutant power. And she just unknowingly, because she didn't know she had these powers, she unknowingly linked minds with her friend who was dying.
Got it.
And she tried to comfort her.
Yeah.
But ultimately, because of her, she didn't know she had the power, so she had no skill set.
Right.
She didn't know how to manage it. Ultimately, so she just basically
put her in a coma, right?
No, she didn't put it.
Put her in Jean in a coma.
No, you didn't put her in a coma, but she was left in this void because basically they met in a void kind of. Yeah. And her friend's mind just faded out when she died, and Jean was kind of left there.
Yeah.
So it kind of affected her that way.
Right.
And so that's how her mutant powers, activated.
Yeah.
And that was the trauma with her friend.
Which I think it's a cool thing with the whole mutant story. A lot of their mutant powers are found or discovered through a traumatic event.
Sure.
Right. So this one, a friend dies. They're linked telepathically. And I mean, she was kind of like, I guess, unconscious until her parents brought her to Charles Xavier, who then helped wake her up, but he also blocked her telepathic abilities at the time.
Right.
Which I guess she still had her telekinesis, but she was not a telepath because of some mental blocks that Xavier put in her in the comics.
Right.
Which there is some of that in the movies too, like where I think we see that in the Fox in the original X-Men series, because Wolverine ends up being upset at Xavier for finding this out after the fact. Like, he put some mental blocks he thought to protect her, but this was, I mean, I think that the version of Xavier we saw on screen is a lot nicer than the one we see in the comics. One of the comics can be a dick.
Right.
So, in helping her, he kind of put these little blocks in there. But later on, as a teenager, he recruited her to be part of the X-Men, and really helped her, understand her powers more. In the comics, he removed those mental blocks when she joined the X-Men. And then she began, her relationship with Cyclops, which has always been a really cool dynamic. The whole Cyclops, Wolverine, Jean Grey, like the little love triangle or whatnot. And that's something, too, that has remained consistent from the comics to the movies to the animated series. And then a big part, and I mean, we're gonna go every single detail, but a big part of Jean's story is the Phoenix Force.
Right.
This really transformed her to, really a whole different character. And this is another part, I guess this is kind of, you could say this about Jean Grey in general. Her origin, her depictions, her portrayals have remained pretty consistent. We've not seen a lot of change with, sometimes they take a character from the comics and they throw them on screen. It's a completely different character.
Right.
Like we saw that with, Taskmaster. Remember the version we saw in Black Widow? God awful.
Right.
And in the comics, it's completely different. So Jean's remained pretty consistent. You have the Phoenix Force, then you have the Dark Phoenix, right? But in any version that you see, X-Men are in space. Right. Well, I shouldn't say any version. In the original Fox, she got the Phoenix power. It wasn't in space. It was after the Alkali Lake fight with Stryker.
Right.
And then she leaves the jet to try to save the X-Men and was kind of killed. And then this Force takes over her. And in that series, I think the mental blocks that Xavier put in place was kind of keeping this Phoenix Force in close, and then that was then released when she was killed in the X-Men in the movies.
Okay.
But in the comics and the animated series, and even in the shitty X-Men movies with your girl Sophie Turner, it all happens in space, right? So basically, the X-Men are on some mission in space, in whatever version you're looking into, and there's an emergency, the shuttle's damaged. And then in the comics, Jean pilots the shuttle back to Earth. But in the movie, I think she leaves the one ship. She goes to the other shuttle where the astronauts are. And there's some cosmic energy there that she comes in contact with. But in the comics, and I know I'm bouncing all around, but in the comics, she basically asks for help. And then this cosmic force kind of helps her, but then embodies her as well, and kind of we don't see it right away. I think after they get back to Earth a while, then she starts kind of, feeling this new power. But then Dark Phoenix, we see the evil side of that. And dude, that's a great comic. That's one that we probably should review here at some point. And then we're talking about X-Men '97 a lot. They, in the animated series, in one of the seasons they do a Phoenix Saga and a Dark Phoenix Saga, and I think those are some of the best episodes that you could watch. So, and that, I mean, really, the Phoenix Saga is like, I mean, or the Phoenix power is like the power of a damn sun. Like, it literally takes someone who's already Omega level. Like, if there was a level above Omega, I think Jean Grey would be there. Anything else on the origin that I think I'm missing or you want to touch on?
Well, it depends on. I go by the old school Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Right? So Xavier didn't like do the mental block thing until later, because when when Jean Grey first came on the scene, she was basically a secretary. Not a secretary, working secretary, but she was like the secretary or the damsel in distress for the X-Men.
Got it.
You know, her powers were like severely limited. She could only do certain things. And also when she first came out, she was known for her telekinesis, not her telepathy.
Right.
Right. So that was discovered later on. And then Xavier put the blocks on. I think he put the blocks on because he felt some kind of way about her level of power.
Oh, yeah.
Because her powers eclipse his by all kinds of measures.
Right. So he saw that when she was young, like, yo, this chick's powerful as hell, so let me put this lock on her telepathic abilities, but leave her telekinesis alone. Right. Which is just, you're moving shit with your mind.
Exactly.
Like that chick in the Jason movie. You ever seen that Jason movie? The old Friday the 13th. I forget her name, but anyway. But even then, her telekinesis power wasn't that powerful, right? Right. She could only lift. She could lift like less than her body weight kind of thing. So again, they really limited her capabilities. He kind of capped her.
Yeah. They definitely capped her.
Yeah.
But then all this other stuff starts coming out, right? So she's actually like not only like an Omega level mutant, she's also an Omega level mutant is a mutant whose power is basically unlimited in one category. Okay. Right. Jean Grey is an Omega level mutant in 3 categories. First of all, she's just an Omega level mutant, right? But then she's like an Omega level telepath, and she's also an Omega level telekinetic. And she's considered a psionic of the highest order, right? Because her powers are cosmic, interdimensional, cross-time capable. She can manipulate things across all of those variables. So within space, across dimensions, and across time. So this chick is like beyond, right? All right, so the Dark Phoenix, depending on what version you go with, and in some cases, she's even said herself. So a lot of people think that the Dark Phoenix gave her extra powers. Not the case. No. The Phoenix Force, which is a cosmic awareness force entity that's right below he who is above all, basically God in Marvel Comics, right? So the Phoenix Force is one of forces. He's like like the Mixoplex character in DC. There are entities, there exist, that is like one step below God across, and there's plenty of them. Yeah. So the Phoenix Force is one of those cosmic level entities, right? And the Phoenix Force was actually attracted to Jean Grey's level of power and hitched a ride on her.
So it kind of sought her out.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. So sought her out because it sensed her level of powers, which, depending on who writes it, right, eclipse the Phoenix power, right? Because Jean has said herself that the Phoenix Force actually capped her power. Really? Yeah, so she was badass before. It's just that the Phoenix Force exposed, through the Phoenix Force, she was exposed to her own level of power. So that's pretty much the way that works. Yeah. And I believe that because even after the Phoenix Force, she could still tap into the Phoenix Force, but without having the Phoenix Force. Right. Right. So, but she is just like off the charts, dude. I'm not even going to go into all the powers, but I'm just going to just read the list of them, right? Because it's just too many, right? But again, she was known for her telekinetic stuff, not all the other stuff. All right. So empathy, basically, she has these emphatic powers that enable her to control, manipulate, and alter the feelings of other people. So you're an evil person, I'm going to make you a good person. And it's not just temporary. She changes you forever. Right. And she can do this on a planetary level, right? Telepathy, That's what she was pretty much known. Not telepathy, telekinesis, which she was basically known for. But her telepathy, she can read the minds, thoughts of other people, project and broadcast her thoughts, even out to animals, like higher level animals, like dolphins and dogs, stuff like that.
So do you think her telepathic abilities are more powerful than Xavier's?
Absolutely.
So I think it was more of he knew how to control his better than she did.
Correct.
But once she learned how to control her, because there's even, a lot of times where she's using Cerebro and then it's like too powerful for her because she doesn't know how to control it yet. And Xavier has his telepathic abilities are not as powerful, but he knows how to control them better, so he doesn't have the same impact on him. You know, and eventually she learns how to control them, and she's just, next level.
Right. Xavier has the experience, and Jean has the power level.
Right.
So he put caps on her so that she wouldn't basically destroy the universe.
Because his ass
which
is
insecure. That too. But I mean, she could literally have destroyed, because Reed Richards had to do the same thing with Franklin. The thing about Franklin was, in the womb, Franklin was developing his powers. Yeah. He almost killed his mother.
Right.
Reed had to go into this other dimension to get this cosmic rod to bring it back so that he can help limit Franklin's power, because he was going to kill Sue before he was even born. So luckily Jean didn't come out like that, so she developed her stuff during this trauma. So telepathy, so a variant of her telepathy was that Psylocke, who's also a telepath. Yeah. Psylocke, she uses her powers differently. So she kind of like exposed Jean to a different kind of using her telepathy. Yeah. So through that, a subsection of her telepathic powers, she got telepathic defense, right? She can resist Xavier, blah, 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 blah. Oh, but with her telepathy, that helmet, that Juggernaut? Yeah. She gets through that.
So she can, but Xavier can't.
Exactly. Yeah. She overpowered Nightmare. So Nightmare is what? A dream entity. She goes and she made Nightmare her bitch. She's like, if I see you, the next time, if I have to see you again, we're going to change all of this. Yeah. But Nightmare, this dude is like off the chart, right? He's in everybody's dream. He's everybody's nightmare. She can go and manage him. She's that powerful. Damn. Telepathic defense, telepathic cloaking. She can make herself invisible, look like other people, things like that. Cloak her mind, psychic shields, resisting other people. She can cast illusions, telepathic camouflage, telepathic manipulation, memory erasure, mind control, mind possession, personality alteration, mental paralysis, mind transfer. So she can transfer her mind and her powers. So if her body gets to a point where she can't heal it, she can transfer her mind into you and her powers. Not just her mind, but her powers too.
I'm ready. She could transfer it to me. I'm good.
No. But no, she will take over you.
Oh, okay.
So she transfer her mind and her powers to another physical body. Yeah. So heal trauma. So obviously it's going to take a lot for that to happen, but she can do it. But so heal trauma, she can. Now this is where if you're hurt, she can take the trauma of your pain away from you, so it doesn't affect you. Right? Which obviously she didn't exercise that with Rogue. Right. I mean, not Rogue, but Storm. Yeah. Right? With that whole claustrophobia stuff. Mental sedating, power amplification. She can increase her speed and power output by taking powers from other things like stars or Galactus, right? Yeah. Power negation. She can place inhibitors on the minds of other mutants. Mind link. She can bond with others, allowing them to communicate. Matter of fact, she is so skilled at that. She can create a mind link with somebody who is telepathically talking. So say somebody's telepathically talking to you. She can backdoor that other telepath and talk to you without the other telepath even knowing that she's even on the scene. Damn. Interdimensional telepathy. This is where, so across dimensions, she can talk mind to mind, right? Okay. Not just across space. psychic blast. She can, hit you with this psychic blast, knock you out, whatever. Astral projection, like Doctor Strange, who shows up. He doesn't physically show up in a place. She can project her form into a place. Temporal telepathy, which means that she can talk to you across time.
Okay.
Right. Mental detection. She can sense the presence of other superhuman mutants within an area. Then there's the telekinesis, force fields, tactical telekinesis, basically the ability to use and project force fields, concussive blast, molecular manipulation and transmutation. This is the thing that makes it a basic Omega level mutant. The ability to affect things at the molecular level, like Storm, like Magneto, like Iceman, things like that. Disintegration. She can break down and tear apart anything. And she can also create anything out of other stuff. Telekinetic weapons, which she learned from Psylocke, to be able to create. So besides all the things that she can already do, if she decides to kill you old school, she don't need to have an old broad axe on her, carrying it on her back. She can just make
one with her mind.
Yep, make one with her mind and like hatchet you in the face. She can fly. Across space at pretty much any speed. Yeah. Right. Psychic siphoning. This is what I was talking about, where she can like take powers from other people, like stars or Galactus, not only to enhance her power, but if she's like low, she can like siphon. Let's just eat this planet, or this star, and then all is good. The telekinetic aura, which is what she does with the Phoenix bird thing. What else? Cosmic level telekinetic blast. Basically, she can scale up her psychic attacks where she can attack people like Galactus or Celestial or something like that. Right? And then there's a couple of others, but the other interesting thing is that we talked about her being able to move her mind and powers to another body if her body gets deteriorated to the point where it can resurrect. But then even if she does die, she can self-resurrect herself.
Because she's died several times in the comics.
Well, everybody's died several times.
But Jean's like, dude, her and Xavier, they have a battle how many times? I think she's probably died more than Xavier.
Possibly. But the difference is that Xavier and who do we do last week? Nightcrawler. All these people have died, but they needed a outside means to bring them back to life. Right. She can resurrect her damn self. Yeah. I mean, this chick is off the hook. Dude. So that's the Omega level mutant. And there's so much more about her. I think she's a very interesting character. Unfortunately, I think they either need to keep her in the pages of the comics, or develop this animated universe that you were talking about that Marvel should do, right? And then
they need to listen to us.
Show spotlight her there, because that kind of power cannot be, and they've proven it cannot be properly displayed in live action. Yeah.
No, it hasn't been. And it's like the more you talk about her, she fits the Omega Level Mutant Series and a Hidden Gem, because we haven't seen a fraction of this shit on screen.
Right.
We've not seen much of her. It's funny because on screen we've seen more of her telepathic abilities.
Right.
We've not seen a lot of her telekinetic abilities on screen.
Right.
Little bits here and there. She hasn't really, her flying ability and how fast you're saying she can fly. We've not seen that on screen.
Nope.
The whole, the empath, like we've not seen her change anyone's emotions or anyone. Like it's literally, it's like Xavier put the cap on her before she hit the screen too.
Right.
Good old Charles Xavier, dude. She's probably one of my favorite X-Men. And I think the best portrayal of her has been in the animated series, and now we're starting to see more of that in X-Men 97, because on screen they've done her a disservice every single time. I mean, Famke Jensen's portrayal was great for those movies, but I think as a whole, the X-Men and whatnot were neutered in those movies. No one really. It was just it was a different time,
right?
So that's why I say that. I double down on the fact that the MCU should pivot to a X-Men / Fantastic Four led story. You can keep the Avengers in there, But I mean, even in the comics, to me, I've always looked at the X-Men up here and the Avengers kind of as like the second tier for me, anyway.
Right.
How about you? You more Avengers, more X-Men. Where you kind of rank those for you?
As far as teams are concerned, I think that they're on the same level. It's just that the X-Men are just so much more. The stories and their adventures and their power sets are so much more exotic, so much more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they even team up or interact with other interesting teams like the Hellfire Club. I mean, that's a whole movie by itself. Or
Right.
Alpha Flight, or all the other mutants that that they're discovering. It brings it to a whole different level of interest. The X-Men, so they're more interesting, but I think they're both on the same level, I would say.
Okay. Well, I'm doubling down. I like the X-Men better. But so speaking of Jean Grey, X-Men 97.
Yep.
Good little segue here. See, we may not be comic book experts. We're pretty damn good at podcasting. I'm just, tooting our own horn here at Adrian. I mean, this was a great segue because we're going to talk about X-Men 97, Episode 3, called Fired Made Flesh, okay? And we'll do what we used to do with our deep dives. Before we even get into this, what score, a scale from 1 to 10, what would you give this episode? I'm going to say 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
About you?
I go with an 8. 8.5.
Okay.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
8.5 is good.
Yep. Now, if you were with us last week, you'd be like, wow, you gave the first 2 episodes a higher rating. I did. And 8.5 is still great, especially for us because we're pretty hardcore here, Adrian.
Right.
One of our mutant skills is not one of our mutant powers that I think we both share is we don't follow the hype. Right. So if everyone else is screaming about things like Zack Snyder's Justice League and how it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, we know that's bullshit because of our mutant abilities.
Right. And what's that mutant ability called? It's called non-bullshittery.
Yes, it is non-bullshittery. We both share that power.
Sounds good.
It makes sense. I mean, yeah, and I mean, one day we'll break down all of our powers, but that is we got podcast voice. We have different powers, but there's some that we share, right? So the podcast voice is one, and the non-bullshittery is second, right? But so, and I think my only real critique for this episode and why I give it 8.5 and not like 9 or almost 10 what I gave the first 2. They crammed a lot into 33 minutes, and it moved a little too fast for me. I mean, not like I still enjoyed it thoroughly, but I'm like there could have been so much more they did with this story. I feel like I feel like it should have been 2 episodes.
Right.
What about you? Why are you saying 8 instead of a 9, whatever we gave last week's?
There was a lot. They still haven't really brought out Sunspot yet, which I'm waiting to see. But I like the whole dynamic. And I called it last week. It was a clone thing.
Yep.
So that was pretty cool. And I like the fact that they are kind of like sticking to the core of the comic book stuff.
Yes.
That whole display, when the clone and how Mr. Sinister came out and all that kind of stuff. That fight scene, Magneto and all that kind of stuff, that could have been its own movie.
Correct.
That was pretty cool.
Yep.
But dude, I'm tired of seeing Scott, man. He's such a God, man. I'm sick of seeing this dude.
Yeah, like sick because you don't like the character, or because of the whole like Cyclops cringe, like the
whole Cyclops cringe thing. I'm like, dude, just give it up. Just be a dude. Just be a dude. I mean, come on.
You know what they might have to do is bump Cyclops, and since I got the hat, put me in charge of the X-Men.
There you go.
I'm thinking that. I think I could lead the X-Men. What do you think?
I think so.
Yeah, only one way to find out, Adrian. But all right, let's dig into the episode. So you did call it. You said that. Actually, before I even dig into that, I sent you an article the other day because you were talking last week about Magneto, Rogue.
Right.
Why are they able to touch? And you said you thought there was some type of magnetic force field, pretty much he put on his hand, and that's why. So I found an article last week that confirmed that you were right, Adrian.
Yep.
So you are now he who is right for this week.
Yeah, that works. So some of these characters, especially like the Magnetos, I mean, who's people that are constantly trying to kill him, right? Probably Sue Storm at this point also does this.
Yeah.
So so he has the ability to project magnetic fields, which we saw in episode 3, which has no defense against the clone,
right?
Because she was throwing probably
She's
plastic
a beast,
shards
dude.
or whatever at him. But what you see is this projected force field around him. But outside of that, because he's probably he has mastered this force field to such a degree, he basically wears a condom on his entire body all the time.
Right.
All the time. So that's why he's able to they're able to interact, and by interact have sex and touch and all these other things, because he constantly wears this ultra thin condom around his entire body that enables them to do these things.
See, and that's why you should subscribe to Only Comics right there, because you're not going to get a better description. We're never going to be way over your head, right? We're not, the molecular level of no, dude wears a magnetic body condom.
There you go.
That's why he's able to touch Rogue. All right, so do with that what you will, but that's how we break it down here on Only Comics. So, but the episode picks up right where last week left off. Right, we got this clone. And Beast is being Beast, man. Beast is beasting. He's in there, doing all his little science stuff, and he basically through some tests figures out that the clone is the original Jean Grey.
Right.
Well, the one they thought was a clone. The one that showed up at the end of the episode was the original Jean Grey, and the one that just had the baby is a clone.
Right.
And the one that just had the baby is like, she don't believe it at first, right? So there's that. So I thought that was a cool little twist, because last week they left us with that nice cliffhanger.
Right.
And one of the things that I really like about 97 so far, and I think it plays to some of the better episodes of the animated series. The animated series, some of their best episodes are when they leaned on comic stories, because they stayed true enough to them. They didn't try to change them too much like they do in the movies. They just kind of took a story that, may have been 3 months long and condensed it into an episode or two, but they did a good job of portraying the stories on screen. Right. And we're seeing a lot of that here. Like this, the storyline with Storm comes right from the comics with Forge, which we'll get to.
Right.
The whole, the clone of Jean Grey is from the comics as well.
Yep.
So sure, there's little tweaks how they're meshing these two stories together, but I like that they stay true enough, at least for me. Right. And Beast, great portrayal in the animated series, and we're seeing that remain true here. So, and from that, we'll jump around a little bit, but you talked about the Magneto and Rogue. I really like the scene where they're going to use a danger room. And then Morph, I like Morph more and more each episode, because he just likes to fuck with people, dude. Yeah,
that was funny.
Yeah, they're like, looks like Magneto, and dude, every time they're looking to schedule a time, and he's rubbing it in Gambit's face, dude, they're using the room again. Maybe she's working on her stamina with the new boss. Right. And then I love Gambit's first he's like, yeah, no, you know what? Maybe I should go check on Rogue.
Right. I like it because of the adultness of it. The blood. The blood gets splattered over the floor. I mean, you probably never saw that before in comic, live action stuff. No. The animated versions of shows.
Right.
Scott and Jean at the end. Once what they Vincent called her, Marilyn or
Madeline Pryor.
Madeline Pryor, when she adopted Madeline Pryor and left, right? Yep. Well, that's the Jean that Scott knows. Right. Now the real Jean is showing up. They're strangers.
Correct.
They don't know how to deal with this, right?
Yeah.
So you got that whole thing, besides the baby's now gone, right?
Yep.
So, but that was cool. So I like the adultness of it.
Yeah.
And that they can, especially that scene, him and Morph and Wolverine.
Yeah.
They in on a joke, but Wolverine's like, dude, just, go easy on him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That was funny.
Yeah, it was. And from that point, that's where we start to see this. Goblin Queen, I guess, is the name she goes by, right, in the comics. But we start to see that kind of infiltrate the X Mansion. You saw Sunspot and Jubilee are sitting there watching TV, and but it started in the baby's room. Right. Jean's laying Nathan down or whatever, and then Sinister starts talking through the baby monitor.
Right.
And then he kind of shows up, dude. I love Mr. Sinister as a character. He's a badass villain.
Yeah, I'm there too. It's like I didn't really get into him when I was, reading comics and stuff, but just reading them again with the Secret Wars. It's very interesting character.
Yeah. And the animated. I was always big on him because you know how much I love the animated series, and he was a big feature in that animated series from like the second season on. And he's always it's not the same level as Doom and Reed Richards, but it's close with how much he loves to fuck with Cyclops and Jean Grey, and how much I think there is some jealousy there. Now, Sinister's background is. He's not really a mutant. He turned himself into this entity by experimenting on mutants, and he kind of made himself a mutant, right?
Correct.
But he has that's like his whole desire is to operate on mutants and figure out what he can do with their powers and shit. And he was always very intrigued and attached to Cyclops and Jean because of the level of their powers.
Right. His whole thing was to get them. He actually started out making a clone of Jean because he expected her to adopt the Phoenix Force or Jean Grey's level mutant powers, and then he was going to control her.
Right.
Well, when that didn't work out, he just kind of dumped her.
Yeah.
And then he didn't dump her. He obviously reprogrammed her to fall in love with Scott. Right.
Yeah.
I forget how the real Jean gets put out the way, but he reprograms the clone to fall in love with Scott so that they can have a baby, because he's going to take the baby. Because he's expecting all this power and stuff to come out of this baby.
Yeah.
So that was the whole premise of that.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yep.
You got this backseat agenda. He's perfect up there with Doom because they always got their agenda. I don't care what I got going on.
Right.
I got my own agenda.
Yeah. Yep, no doubt. And a little tidbit about Morph, because Morph is a character that was created for the animated series. And in the first couple episodes of the original, Morph is killed by the Sentinels. Morph and Wolverine are really tight. This affects Wolverine. And in the beginning of the second season, Morph returns, but he's under Sinister's control. He even has like black circles around the eyes, like when you don't sleep for 2 days. Right. And then he ends up coming back to the X-Men, and that's the Morph we see now. So he's very tied to the Sinister story, which he's the one who then leads the X-Men to Sinister's lair or whatever, but it's based off of his interactions in the past with Sinister.
Right. Oh.
So, the battle that you're talking about, they basically, this whole Sinister, Madeline Pryor kind of infiltration to the mansion leads the X-Men to, it kind of reminds me of Scarlet Witch a little bit, where in the Age of Ultron, when she's still a villain, and she kind of mind possesses all the Avengers and shows them like horrific shit, stuff that they, very uncomfortable visions there, right? We kind of get the same thing here. Like Gambit is now seeing Rogue and Magneto like literally attached, right? And Magneto's all naked, and so they're all kind of seeing things that they don't want to see. I mean, Morph going into the shower thinks Wolverine's in there, and then it's Sinister messing with him. So that there's all kinds of shit that they're he's trying to traumatize them.
Right. It was funny when Beast opened the elevator door.
Yeah.
He's like, I think one of us is on the wrong floor. That was cool.
Yeah, which is so true to. That's what I love about this animated. It's so true to how these characters are in comics. They don't change everything just to change it, which happens a lot with live action. Yeah. Like it's like, dude, they're very good stories. Just use them.
Exactly.
Long story short, we end up getting to this, Sinister's little area or whatever, one of his labs. And it's a pretty cool fight scene, man. You were talking about earlier with, now this is when the Jean Grey clone turns fully transforms into Goblin Queen.
Right.
Are you familiar with Goblin Queen from the comics at all, or is it your first kind of time seeing her?
This is my first, really my first time seeing her, but I'm thinking we probably need to do a deep dive into, the Goblin Queen, because she's badass.
Yeah, she was.
She took Magneto out like
nothing, dude. You talk about blood, man. He was messed up.
Oh yeah.
Like she just and Magneto, we talked about him, I think it was last week on our Omega. He's also Omega level.
Right.
All kinds of power. So the fact that she just knocked him along the side like he was the Justice League,
Well, but I think he should use this opportunity because she pretty much ripped up his uniform. You should use this opportunity to get back to his old
That's
uniform.
A great point. Yeah. So maybe they're listening and they're like, Mike and Adrian don't like this costume. Let's have the Goblin Queen tear it up. But who knows? Typical Marvel shit. He'll be back in the same uniform next week, and we have no idea how he fixed it. But anyway, this battle I thought was pretty cool. Yeah. The whole scene with them there. And through all this, we end up seeing the baby Nathan, Sinister just kind of throws him in this like tub of green shit, which is it basically gave him some type of virus, right? And I may be missing a point. I don't know what the whole idea was there, but maybe that was him being in that would allow Sinister to control him possibly.
Right.
But we get to see Cyclops really use, like, Cyclops' powers have never looked better in anything, to be honest.
I agree.
They're really showing a real extent of his powers. Like, I mean, it's an optic, like, concussive blast.
Yes.
That's a lot more powerful than we've ever seen anywhere.
Right.
So he pretty much kind of saves the day, right? I mean, Cyclops comes in, breaks the whole tank open, and now,
well, that didn't take much power, but
no.
The fact that he kind of sideswiped the Goblin Queen.
Yes, we saw a little blood.
Right. So Cyclops is not his power. His power is just awesome because just like his power is the opposite of his brother's, Havoc.
Yeah.
Right? Their power set is awesome. It's just that dude is broken.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a little boy. Constantly seeking attention, and it just makes it messy to me.
He's, as I call him, he's Captain Cringe. One of our fans didn't agree. They're like, he's not cringy. Oh, he's cringy as fuck. I'll tell you that. But he uses his powers right on Sinister, and we actually, in the animated series, there is a little fight between them, and we see a very similar outcome where he's blasting Sinister right in the chest, and you see his body kind of deteriorate, and you see that he ain't all human under there. Like, there's a lot of shit going on there. Right. But he could not handle Cyclops' blast, it's kind of crazy with how much he's obsessed with Jean and Cyclops that Sinister hasn't figured out a way to protect himself more, knowing he's going to be going at them all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, the dude gets his head chopped off. He just goes over and picks it up, and I mean, so I don't think he really cares.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to probably do a deeper dive into like how much of his body can be destroyed before he can't come back, kind of a deal.
Right.
But if he can get up and attack somebody without his head,
True.
He's not too worried about Cyclops.
Yeah, but he kind of saves the day. But then we see the other Jean, because at this point she's back at the X Mansion still
with Wolverine.
Yes, of course. Like that is one thing too. Like, can Wolverine get involved in some battles, please, or is he always going to play like Jean's caretaker?
I think he's going to play Jean's caretaker as long as he possibly can.
Yeah, I know. Even like when they're. At some point, Wolverine makes the comments, like, I'm going to go find the redhead, at least one of them.
Right, right. Or when she was reading his mind, he was like, oh, Wolverine, you care about me like that? I'm like, come on. He's like, yeah, I really do.
Yeah, well, he's kind of
I'm paraphrasing, but yeah.
I mean, pretty much. Sounds good to me. But he's Wolverine. He's what I like to bring these the words that kids use and introduce them to you, right?
Sure.
He's what they would call simp. Okay, he's simping for Jean Grey. Let that set in. Someone in the comments.
Is he like fiending? Is like fiending?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Not like simping like a simp, like sorry or.
It is kind of sorry. Yeah, you're a little pathetic. Yeah, she's got you twirled around her a little. Because I mean, dude, she's married with a kid. Like, move on, bro. Enough. Stop.
So whipped.
He's whipped. Yes.
Okay.
There you go. Very similar. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. So, but whip would indicate that y'all are together. Simp is like she's got you in the palm of her hand, and you ain't even. I mean, you ain't wearing no body condom around her. So, anyway, but we see, and that's partly why I say 8.5 instead of a 9 or 10, because even Jean getting a grasp of her powers happens very fast. Like, we're dealing with a Jean Grey who doesn't know how to use her powers yet because she's.
She doesn't?
No, the one that was we thought was the clone in the beginning.
Yeah.
Remember they said like she has her powers, but she doesn't know how to control them yet.
Oh.
And then over like 5 minutes, she figures it out. So that's cool. But then she basically has like a psychic war with Goblin Queen, and she turns herself into this big giant entity and kind of eats her. It was a little odd. But I mean, long story short, of course the X-Men prevail like they always do, right? But there's a lot more to this episode than just the battle, because now when they basically save Nathan, they realize he's infected with this virus.
Right.
And then Bishop has his little time control break. Long story short, they basically know that there's someone in the future who can help cure this baby, and Jean is all about making the decision to send him back. Cyclops is struggling with this. Because, his father abandoned him and he didn't want to abandon the son. But it's like, dude, he's about to die of this, like, organic virus shit. Send him back in time. So Bishop's willing to just up and leave, take this child, go to the future, help save him. Which now we know, or most of us know, that this baby is Cable.
Mm-hmm.
Nathan Summers is Cable. And Cable's already debuted in the animated series, so now we're getting to see his actual origin, which is pretty cool. So Bishop takes him to the future, looking for a cure. This is also when the clone kind of leaves the X-Men, and she takes the name Madeline Pryor.
Right.
Before we move on to story, anything you want to touch on there?
Well, it explains a lot. It explains the technology in Cable.
Yeah.
I had some thoughts, but I'll get back to them.
All right. So it wraps up. It's not an end of credit scene like but there's a little scene that has nothing to do with the rest of the episode. We see Storm in a bar somewhere.
Right.
And then Forge walks in. Mm-hmm. And they're where are they at? Phoenix or something? They're talking about like a very hot weather, and he makes a comment about like, it'd be cool if, someone could just make it rain. I love her response too, like basically talk directly. Right. Storm's a badass.
Yeah.
And he basically alludes to the fact that he can help restore her powers. Mm-hmm. Now, we talked about this last week. In the comics, this does happen. They actually get together, right. Forge and Storm. And then Storm finds out, I think Forge tells her that he was the one who created the weapon that took her powers in the first place.
Right.
And then she kind of kicks him to the curb,
Well, but in this series, that the guy who shot the gun was the one we saw him tinkering with the gun. So
true.
So I'm curious how they're gonna spin that.
Yeah.
Because Forge in this particular case didn't make the gun, right?
Right.
This guy did, but he could have just been assembling something that Forge put together.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. We don't know. They could lead down this road, or maybe Forge had nothing to do with it, or maybe he made the original one and they made who knows?
Yeah.
But and it goes back to the point I was making earlier of them adapting these comic stories and not changing them too much, but they're just tying them all together to make it work for it. So, dude, I love where this thing is going, man. Anything else on this episode you want to touch on?
I just like the definitely. I agree. This should have been 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. Part 1, part 2, and the fight scene should have been in number 2.
Yep.
Or they just could have made like a feature length episode where it was like maybe an hour or 50 minutes or something like that. Because this episode 3 definitely could have stood on its own and definitely could have ran a longer period of time.
Right. Yeah, I think I would have been cool with 2 episodes. I mean, they do a lot of part 1, part 2s in these shows, and there's even some stories like you go to Dark Phoenix Saga in the original, and they spread across I think 6 episodes. So I'd been cool if this one was a 2-parter. But all in all, I really enjoyed it. I love where this series is going. I guess the only downfall is we got to wait a week. I think what we'll do, Adrian, is because of our recording schedule. Someone like last week, I put the podcast out on Tuesday. They're like, "Are you going to put it out on Tuesdays from now on?" Here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. This is a side gig for us that we started for fun, and we're making a run with it. So you all can help us be more consistent. Watch it more, share it more, get some more views, and then maybe it won't be such a side gig, So, or you can go to onlycomicsmerch.com, buy some shit. But anyway, so we'll be back till Monday release this week. But I think what we'll do, Adrian, is wait. Let's let 2 episodes pile up because we got to do the Madam Web review next week.
Okay.
So we'll let 2 episodes pile up, and then we'll do we'll review episodes 4 and 5 the following week. But next week we're going to dig into Madam Web. Now do you we have no idea yet. A lot of what we've talked about were recently some really strong female characters, right? Mm-hmm. Jean Grey, the whole Madeline Pryor, Phoenix, the whole deal. Do you think Madam Web's going to live up to the hype?
I'm not seeing it. I mean, there's a reason I didn't go to the movie theater to see this, right?
Right.
Other than, like I said, my kidney's still here.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
We'll see. There's also a reason why the movie came out like about a month ago and it's already available for rent and purchase. Like good movies usually take a while.
Yeah.
Shitty ones like shit. Try to get someone else to buy it now before it absolutely tanks. So anyway, but yeah, I'm looking forward to where this is going. So the next 2 episodes, let's go through the titles of them. Motendo / Life Death Part 1. No idea what any of that means. And then episode 5 is titled Remember It. So something from the past. Who knows? Any idea? Does that mean anything to you, or is just
that means 0?
So
very mysterious.
It is very mysterious. So you mentioned earlier, this is really nothing to do with this, but Psylocke.
Yeah,
she's a cool character.
Yeah,
that's probably a cool hidden gem. That's one. Now, we did see her once in live action. Olivia Munn played her, which I think she looked the part. Like, I think she was perfect for that part, actually.
Yep.
But it was one of those where she was just kind of a sideline character in the movie. Right. So for what was given to her, I think she did a great job, but they didn't use her enough. She was just kind of there, you know. Yeah. But Psylocke's cool, a badass character. Yeah. All right, well, that's it for the X-Men 97. Let us know what you think. Do you think 8.5 is fair, or are we being a little too hard on them, or are you out there saying it's a perfect 10? But you know, like we told you, our mutant power is, what do you say, non-bullshittery? Yep. That's why we gave it 8.5. We tapped into our mutant abilities, right? But we will be back next week. Next week we respond, Adrian. So we're gonna respond to y'all. We'll let you off the hook this week, you know, for Easter. That's what it is. So if you celebrate Easter, whether you believe in Jesus or the Easter Bunny, whatever you do, happy Easter, everyone.
There you go.
There you go, Adrian. Thanks for coming out.
Yep, always.
And we will be back next week on Only Comics. Share this, like this, subscribe, give this to somebody who you know needs it, because like we said before, Only Comics is the only comic podcast for you. We appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll be back here next week.